What is forgiveness in A Course in Miracles, and how do I practice it? To start, I want to let you know that I'm aware the world looks like it has gone mad. I'm also not sitting here talking to you as though I am above the feelings of anguish and angst that I know you probably feel. This isn't about trying to put a better or more positive or spiritual spin on things, nor is it me talking to you from above. I'm right here with you, my friends, so just know that I say the following words from the midst of the turmoil, doing the same practices that I am about to share here. Forgiveness in A Course in Miracles is different than the forgiveness we usually think about and practice as we've learned it. But to understand this type of forgiveness, it helps to take a closer look at how we usually define forgiveness. Traditional forgiveness means that someone, and this can include you, did something wrong and you decide, for whatever reason, to overlook it or get past it. You've probably heard the term, "I'll forgive, but I'll never forget," or something like that. In your mind, this sinner made a mistake and you'll be the bigger person by letting them off the hook. However, they will always have this mark against them because what they did to you was real. They're the guilty one, and you're the innocent victim. For example, let's say you and I have been friends for the last 20 years. One day it gets back to me that you spoke badly about me to a potential employer, ruining my chance for a job that I wanted. I would feel hurt, angry, and betrayed. The last 20 years of our friendship would now seem meaningless, even if that was the only time you ever did something like that, while the rest of our friendship was beautiful and authentic. You would now have this mark against you. You would be the one who acted badly, and I would be the victim of it. Perhaps I'd want to get to the bottom of things. I'd ask you what happened, listen to your response, and realize that you'd had an off day and didn't mean what you said. You apologized and said you didn't intend to hurt me. Because of our long-standing friendship, I'd want to see the best in you and find a way to overlook what happened. Maybe I'd choose to forgive you, and if so, it would look something like this. Even though you spoke badly about me and ruined my chance for this job, which confused and hurt me deeply, I understand you weren't out to get me. We've been such good friends all these years, and you apologized and seemed sincere about it, so I'll let this go and trust it won't happen again. Our friendship can go back to normal, but I won't forget this. In this scenario, I've let you off the hook for what you did, but the memory of it and its impact on my life will always be there. We may continue to be friends, but my trust in you would now have a dent in it, and I'd always see you as someone capable of hurting me or wronging me in some way since you've proven that you're capable of it. Now, true forgiveness in A Course in Miracles is different. It's about not making the error real and not making you guilty of anything. It sees there was no sin on anyone's part and keeps the incorruptible innocence of us both as the only reality there is. The workbook defines true forgiveness as this. Forgiveness recognizes that what you thought your brother did to you has not occurred. It does not pardon sins and make them real. It sees there was no sin, and in that view are all your sins forgiven. What is sin except a false idea about God's Son? Forgiveness merely sees its falsity and therefore lets it go. What then is free to take its place is now the will of God. I know the idea of letting your brother off the hook for what they really did seem to do is a tough pill to swallow, and to be honest, I'm not quite there yet either. The idea is to practice this as often as we can on the smaller upsets and irritations that occur in our day-to-day lives, so we'll be in a better position to do this when the bigger, seemingly unforgivable things come up. ACIM's forgiveness has to do with looking at the error the mind made. The Course teaches that projection makes perception, and that the world and everyone in it are projections stemming from a mind that believes in sin, guilt, and fear. We need others to be guilty in order for us to be innocent victims. It's how the ego set things up to help us, quote unquote, alleviate the guilt in our minds from splitting off from God and making a world that shuts him out. But instead of going through the entire how we made the world explanation, I'll leave a link in the description box below to a video explaining that and why guilt plays such a large role in the mind. Back to the topic at hand, using the earlier example, true forgiveness would look something like this. My dear friend, as real as your betrayal seems, I am dreaming a dream. I've made this all up, including you and this situation. I needed you to be the guilty one so I could be innocent. This entire thing is a projection stemming from a mind that believes I did what can't be done, which is separating from God. And in this, I have sinned and deserve punishment. You are simply acting out the role I assigned to you to make you guilty so I can be innocent. But now I'm only willing to see us both as God's incorruptibly innocent Son, and I call upon my inner teacher to look at this with me and to undo this error in my mind. Where I was willing to judge, I am now willing to forgive what never happened. Now, you wouldn't necessarily say these words or any words for that matter. They are simply right-minded thoughts that can help you to see the situation from the place of true forgiveness. Now, as I said before, I get that this seems difficult, if not impossible. We're wired to judge. Judgment stands ready at the helm to pounce on anything and everything it can, ranging from how we feel about the weather to how we interpret the way someone treats us to how we view politicians, society, sickness, etc. Judgment is so inherent in the ego's thought system that it always speaks first and loudly. It's impossible to ignore, so it takes over, using the past, our emotions, upsetting world events, and everything else it can to justify our upset. I feel it's important to mention that none of this means that you should stay in toxic situations or relationships just to practice forgiveness or because you're trying not to see the other one as guilty. You don't have to suffer needlessly. You can part ways with someone or something if that's what you feel you must do, especially if there's abuse involved. A Course in Miracles doesn't suggest that you be anyone's doormat. The idea is to practice true forgiveness so you don't allow the unconscious guilt disguised as problems to disappear back into the unconscious mind just to reappear sometime later on using different characters and situations to relive the same insanity over and over again. And if you're wondering why you may still feel upset after practicing forgiveness, just know this may take some time and multiple applications. But keep at it. There are really only two choices anyway: hold on to the error or let it up to be released. Regardless of how you go about it, you'll still be upset, so why not get started on its removal? In the lesson, I am never upset for the reason I think, we are being told that regardless of the appearance, our upsets always come from a mind that believes in sin, guilt, and fear. It gives us that opportunity to take a much-needed pause and remind ourselves that while the situation looks and feels lousy, it isn't the cause of our pain. If nothing else, it offers some distance between us and the problem, giving us a moment to remember that we are the observers and not the dream figures identified with the upsetting situation. The next time you find yourself upset with something, allow the words, "I am not upset with this, fill in the blank, for the reason I think," to cross your mind. They'll likely give you a sense of peace, sanity, and clarity, even if just for a moment. In the lesson, "I could see peace instead of this," we are brought back to sanity in that it reminds us that it is only our wrong-minded perception that experiences upsets, and that we do have a right-minded way of seeing things. Instead of relying on the outward projection to provide us with the proof we need to assign blame to something or someone out there, and using the seek and do not find thought system of the ego for solutions to problems we don't even truly understand, we go inward to where the problem really is, which is the mind's decision for the ego. We are shown that all we need to do is remind ourselves that there must be a better way. That very question led to A Course in Miracles in the first place, so we can see that it does work. It's the ultimate experience of ask and you shall receive. All of this comes down to an identity crisis. We identify as the person or the dream figure we think we are. Mythical me. This figure is the victim of a cruel world with lots of problems and guilty people waiting to do us wrong. True forgiveness, through consistent practice and application, brings us back to what we really are, which is spirit, completely safe, completely loved, and untouched by anything, because in that silent stillness is the truth of the self that God created. This is our true and only identity. It is invulnerable, eternal, and it is mind. We don't experience this self because we have covered it up with countless grievances. True forgiveness removes these unforgiven thoughts from our mind and allows the light of truth into our awareness. It's important to understand that the you think you are isn't doing the forgiving. It can't. Egos can't forgive. What you are essentially doing is you are bringing the upset to your inner teacher, who is the one that lovingly removes the error from the mind that made it in the first place. You'll know you've truly forgiven someone or something when you experience a sense of gratitude in place of the feelings of upset. That friend who spoke badly about you to that potential employer went from being your enemy to your greatest teacher, regardless of what happens to the friendship. Imagine how free you would feel if you couldn't be upset, if no one could push your buttons anymore. If you know that whatever happens, you're the living example of the peace of God. As I said, I won't pretend any of this is easy, even if it is simple. But we're going to be upset about things anyway. May as well put these upsets to good use. Now, before I share a simple but powerful forgiveness practice, I have a confession to make. I have made this video just as much for me as for you. It appears that recently I've been reliving upsets that I've experienced many, many times in the past. In fact, the last few weeks have felt like hell for me. This video has been in the making for several weeks now, and I couldn't bring myself to finish it because I felt like I had nothing helpful to share. Who am I to talk about practicing forgiveness when I'm suffering so much? When I felt so depressed, angry, and as though every cell in the body, every space in my mind encompasses nothing other than intense feelings of hopelessness and melancholy. The triggers have been intense. The people involved change and the circumstances vary, but the feelings underneath it all are the same. Different forms, same content. I will continue to re-experience similar conditions until I continuously practice true forgiveness on it, which thankfully I now do rather quickly. This is my own return to sanity. I am the decision-making mind, listening to the ego's antics, experiencing the pain of them, and choosing again. Every upset goes back to the one decision to remember not to laugh and to choose the ego over the voice for God. It's as though that one choice plays out over and over again in different ways, inviting us to choose again, as often as it takes. Since I started allowing my upsets to expose the workings of my small mind and show me the decision for the ego, I have noticed that throughout my entire life, I have viewed the world through the lens of guilt, whether it was mine or seemingly someone else's. Feeling angry, unfairly treated, weak, dismissed, anxious, and unworthy have been the threads that make up the fabric of my own small-minded perception. Once I took a step back and decided, as best as I could, to view things from above the battleground, I could see that every upset I have ever encountered came from this one decision to listen to the ego. Now I no longer feel swayed to believe that any upset I experience is as it appears. As I've mentioned, I still get angry, I still feel unfairly treated, I still get triggered. The only difference is I no longer spend endless amounts of time ruminating in any of this, and I don't believe the stories any longer. My only intent is to return to my right mind and decide again to see things as they are rather than the way I set them up. My only desire is to see everyone as innocent, including the dream character I have always thought of as my identity. As far as this powerful forgiveness practice you can start, you can practice true forgiveness silently by simply looking at the upset and allowing it to be there without judging it. It's showing you the contents of your own unconscious mind. It's coming up for release. You can consider it the return of the repressed, as I have heard one workshop so brilliantly phrased. Your job is to allow it to be there and look at it with your inner teacher. That's it. You look, you wait, and you judge not. In this, you are bringing the error to the truth. It's that straightforward. It isn't about solving anything, fixing anything, or changing anything. It isn't about becoming a better person or solving problems. It's looking at the error with your guide without judging it. But as simple as this practice is, it does require discipline. It may take some time to remember to do this when life gets busy. There's always something grabbing our attention, and that may not change for a while. But if you're truly sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, you'll start remembering to forgive as much as you can until it becomes your full-time job. That's a job that will pay more dividends than any stock, retirement benefits, or any passive income model ever will, because in this, there's no crash, no loss, no dependency on anything seemingly outside of you, with nothing and no one controlling your well-being in any way. Forgiveness is still and quietly does nothing. It offends no aspect of reality, nor seeks to twist it to appearances it likes. It merely looks and waits and judges not. He who would not forgive must judge, for he must justify his failure to forgive. But he who would forgive himself must learn to welcome truth exactly as it is. True forgiveness is practicing A Course in Miracles. In closing, I'll share a link to a YouTube channel that talks about practicing true forgiveness, along with a link to a short video sharing a simple and sweet forgiveness practice you can use at any time, especially in a pinch. I'll also leave links to a couple of workshops I've listened to that help me when it comes to looking at the ego and how to see things when it appears to be striking back. The workshops aren't free, and I'm not an affiliate or anything, but I'll leave them there anyway. And lastly, I'll share a blog post that discusses the 7 essential principles to quantum forgiveness. I had memorized these principles and used them while I was on a road trip a couple of years ago, experiencing some pretty stressful conditions. They helped me to get right-minded instead of ruminating in the upsets. I'll say it again. I know triggers aren't easy to deal with. I believe we're all experiencing the return of the repressed, but don't recognize that that's what it is. If we can step back for a moment and take that much-needed pause to look without judgment as often as we can, and in doing this, hand it all over to the light of truth, these hidden aspects of our wrong mind will eventually be released for good. The world will seem to change only when it reflects a mind that is free of the belief in sin, guilt, and fear. I hope you found this truly helpful. Bye for now.